What is going on, everyone, in all the beautiful and all the great land? It is your guy, Nicholas Wilcox. It is your brother from another mother, Johnny Main. And we out here, the Fantasy Football Show. We out here with Rich Hribar. Rich Hribar from Sharp Football joins the Fantasy Football Show. Rich, say what's up to the great people.
Hey, what is going on, guys? I've got a chance to hang out with you guys the last couple of years at the Expo. We introduced each other to last year, hang out again. If you guys do go to the Expo, I mean, listen, Jono's down to earth. He's cool. Nick is like a wild card. Like I feel like there's like a few Nicks. Like he's got like clones because he's everywhere. Like where you go, like it's like, man, he's here, he's there. No matter where you are, like you just pop up everywhere, man, down there.
Oh my goodness, I know, man. It was a blast in Ohio just to see Rich once again out there. Like, if you ain't been to Ohio, you ain't been to Fantasy Football Expo, man, you're doing it all wrong for real. But that being said, like I said, we got Rich in the house. We're gonna go over some things with him in terms of his process, in terms of what he sees the fantasy football landscape in general. And if you're lucky, we may answer some of your questions. But that being said, we're going to go over some news and notes real quick when it comes to around the NFL. Obviously, the news of Amari Cooper signing with the Las Vegas Raiders for a one-year contract deal. That being said, in other news, Jacoby Myers asking for a trade in counterintuitive. So quick thoughts on this, quick reaction to that real quick in terms of Amari Cooper signing with an older team once again.
For me, I'm not buying too much into it. I didn't really like what I seen last year when he was with Buffalo and what happened there. He played, obviously that offense is a little bit different than the Dallas offense that he played in whenever he was in his heyday. Maybe there's something there for scraps if the Raiders are not good. Maybe there's something there, but the Jacoby Myers piece, I don't think they're coming off of him from everything I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything to it. That's just kind of my take. It's not really moving the needle anyway for me, really. So
it feels a little late in the game for Jacoby Myers to pull this card. I think it's something he should have probably did about 5 weeks ago,
right.
Not on the doorstep of the season. Because you get it, right? Like he feels like this is probably like his last chance to strike a decent payday. He's an unrestricted free agent. I think he would have a market still last year, but he feels underpaid. Like him and Juwan, he's on the Juwan Jennings corollary, right? Like similar point of his career. And a team like the Raiders, they probably feel like, we'd like to keep you, but like we're also like we feel like you're the type of talent that maybe like we feel like we can't upgrade on too. It's like that weird limbo that he's in in terms of talent. And I just think that they look at their younger guys too, like Jack Besh isn't ready. Obviously, Dante Thornton's had he's had like sparks of promise in the preseason, but still isn't creating a lot of separation. I think they just wanted a little more veteran insurance. I mean, this is a team that's definitely trying to compete this year. Like you don't hire a near 80-year-old head coach. You don't pay Chip Kelly to be the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. Like unless you're really trying to turn this around, you don't trade for a 34-year-old quarterback unless you're really trying to structurally compete. So I feel like this is more of a testament on the depth of what the Raiders have and how they feel about their wide receiver room in totality, behind Jacoby Myers. But I'm with you, John. Like you look at what Amari did going to the Bills last year, because we thought it was lifeline right in the middle of the season, leaving Deshaun Watson, leaving that Browns organization to go play with Josh Allen and literally the team that scored the most touchdowns over expectation last year. And he had 33 yards or fewer in 7 of his games joining the Bills. Right? Like, how are we supposed to be excited about him potentially being the third target in this Raiders offense? So it's just real hard, right? To kind of have it like it really strike a chord to where you're genuinely excited.
That's real. The other big news that happened today, Joe Mixon officially going to be starting the season on the reserve non-football injury list, which means he'll miss at least 4 regular season upcoming games this season with that foot injury that we just barely got any news about and updates as much about. But honestly, like it was something where, I thought Joe Mixon could be had at a cheaper price in some of these drafts. Unfortunately, it just kept on going down and down and down. And then right before we talked about Mixon versus David Montgomery, then Mixon really wants to go down with that injury. because me and John had a back and forth about that between him and David Montgomery. And obviously, I talked about Mixon, and that's what I get because I never liked Mixon. So, any quick thoughts on that before we really get started?
I've already voiced my opinion on Joe Mixon. He was somebody I was out on from the jump. Just a lot of red flags as far as injuries go. He wasn't there when you needed him the most as far as the fantasy playoffs went. He's an older back. And then it even got me to thinking more like, not to like go off on this tangent, but like, what did Joe Mixon do really good? I think is the question. Like, and I just can't find anything that like really popped for me. Obviously he played with those Cincinnati offenses, earlier on, putting up points. And last year, he had some moments for sure, but I think after the ankle injury, and just, age and father time, and I'm pretty sure as well, I think there were some efficiency metrics. I don't have them obviously all in front of me right now, but they were all just super negative as far as he goes. So that just made it to somebody that I was out on coming into the year.
Yeah, insiders, they're still trying to keep some optimism with this injury. They don't want to for sure declare him out for the season or have him have surgery because they haven't really kind of diagnosed exactly what the problem is. And they told reporters like in the building like a month ago not even to ask about him. So everything's just been kind of trending negatively that will we even see him, at all this season. I mean, this is a player that had the multiple ankle injuries last year. He had Liz Frank injury a couple of years ago with the Bengals. He's had a ton of foot and ankle issues. The offensive line is actually significantly worse as a run blocking unit too. Obviously you lose Tunsil and Shaq Mason. They're just trying to piece things together with like a bunch of cast offs, on the offensive line, like guys like Ed Ingram who have bounced around, Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson. I just don't know if anyone's going to be able to take advantage of any type of lanes like this offensive line can create. I just don't know if they have the depth here. I don't even feel like chasing any of the other guys. Like I get it. Like there's a price point. Like if you're cheap enough to nibble on a Nick Chubb, a Woody Marks, or a Damian Pierce, if you're feeling like the change to like more man gap stuff under Nick Caley is going to be a positive. But I just generally think when you look at the strength of the Texans offense, it's CJ Stroud having more agency to play offensive football this year. Like you've seen all the stuff that like, hey, I want to be able to call things at the line of scrimmage, make alterations. And you look at their receiving unit. Hopefully they can knock on wood, stay healthy this year because they haven't been able to stay healthy the past years. But Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, that's still the strength of the offense still when you look at this offense. So I think that they're kind of built to throw. They have a nice little kind of a favorable schedule to open the year too, where I think they can lean on Stroud in that passing game, maybe play a little bit up tempo and high scoring. I'm really excited to see what this offense looks like, even kind of removing the Joe Mixon thing. Cause I actually do want to see like CJ Stroud have to carry the offense. I'm ready for it. Like year 3, like we don't have PFF Bobby there anymore. Like let's let CJ Stroud cook, man. Let's let CJ Stroud handle the offense in year 3.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, man. We had just one quick one here. Damian Pierce. Does he have a strong role to start the season?
Oh boy, the words John don't want to hear.
What do you think about that, Rich?
I would be interested in the scheme change, going to more man gap stuff where he had success as a rookie if he can get there. I do believe though to start it's going to be kind of a conglomeration though. I mean, the coaching staffs like Nick Chubb's the type, he's a worker, right? Like he's going to earn things Monday through Friday when we're not in the building, right? Like the things we can't see. Like we know he's going to have like the faith of the coaching staff from the work he's putting in. He's going to earn opportunities. And like I said, I just don't know if there's enough juice with Nick Chubb after those injuries or anyone in this offense to maybe exploit to be like a full hit here. I think they're going to roll out all these guys. You might see some Woody Marks or get trickled in, and some Dario Huwala is probably not going to go away either. He plays special teams. He already has pass pro experience. I doubt they're just going to throw Woody Marks out there and pass downs to open his career. You just very rarely see that from rookies, right? Like get handled in these long down and distances where you got to protect the quarterback. So I assume Ogunbowale is going to be involved in that capacity too. Like I said, I don't fault anyone for like just throwing a dart. Like you're at the end of your draft at 18th round, Damian Pierce is there. Hey, let's just see what happens the first month. I can always throw him back. I don't have any issue with that.
Dig that. Yeah, he burned me. He burned me bad. Worse than a $5 prostitute, man. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely, man. Still, yeah.
Oh man. Well, we're gonna get into overall Rich analysis and process. We'll first start with Rich. Where does your love of the fantasy football game come from?
I mean, I was always just a huge sports kid, man. Like, always, collected cards. Always played Tecmo Bowl and like kept my stats from like Tecmo Bowl, like all that stuff, like writing them in notebooks, like doing all stuff like that. It's like I was always kind of dialed into all sports, and kind of once fantasy became like an outlet, it was like, oh yeah, this is like completely in my lane. We can play a game based on this. So yeah, it was a real easy transition. Like once fantasy football came around to jump right in.
Dig that. Dig that. All right, man. So I'm gonna ask you, like, what are some markers about your process in the past seasons that have led you to the success that you currently have had?
We could do a whole show on this stuff. Like, it's just I age myself because I made a lot of mistakes, and you learn from stuff. But I mean, the first thing I learned like early on in the industry as a couple things, as a content creator and then as a gamer. Like one, like I approach fantasy football like I'm going to be wrong. Like I play fantasy football like I'm going to be wrong. Um, I don't really kind of get glued into like, prestige, like, hey, these binary player takes. Like I kind of keep an open mind. I try to build structurally, like based on my league settings. I feel like that's the most important thing first. Like always look at like how your league is structured. It's going to kind of guide you on how you want to build your rosters. Think about like where the NFL is right now. I mean, the NFL is now back to like a cyclical approach. Like when you think like anti-fragility and like zero RB, when that stuff started to like really pop off and gain steam, it also coincided with the time where like the NFL had a big influx of like spread offenses. The wide receiver 3 was starting to become more utilized. Then what happened with that is that defenses said, hey, we're tired of getting like smoked and giving up big plays. We're going to start playing, nickel based defense. We're going to get lighter. We're going to start to play shell coverage. Vic Fangio, starts to, he starts to take off as a defensive coordinator. People start copying him. A lot of that cover 6 quarters, that match coverage. And then what does the NFL say we have to do to that then? All right, well, what if we start to get, if you're going to play lighter defense, play shell coverage, we're going to get bigger. We're going to start running the football. And we're kind of in that transition. It's that cyclical era, right? Because like cover 2 and cover 4, like that stuff that wasn't created. Like it's just, it's what it was to combat what was getting popular. And now we also have a new influx of like running back talent too. I mean, when you look at all these running backs that are on like rookie contracts, I mean, we're pretty blessed right now than where we were like a decade ago. Like we've got a real influx of really, really young talent paired with like established veterans that still haven't like been cooked. I mean, you look at Saquon last year, Derrick Henry still is doing his Derrick Henry thing. I think a lot of people are expecting CMC to bounce back as long as he's on the field this year. You still got guys like Alvin Kamara who can catch the football. Like it's a really deep running back position compared to years past. And it also coincides with the time. So I always, like I said, I try to play fantasy football just for era, adjust for your format, but like to approach it like where I'm wrong. But I also like to say when I want to make bets on me being right, I want them to be in like situations that like can really tilt like a league. Like there's a few examples of that this year. Like obviously there's CMC, with a price point of him, like, can you get him at the, end of round 1? He's climbed a little bit. We've got like Tyreek Hill now moving into like the 3rd and 4th round, and like what's going to happen with him. Like, and then you've got the Rashee Rice angle, right? Like, these are all like kind of 3 pretty big, I think, fulcrum points in fantasy football as we enter this offseason, because those are all players on an individual level, on a weekly level, can alter weeks for your teams, and they come at various price points. So like that's kind of fun to like kind of walk through the scenarios of all those guys. If we want to get into it, like you guys can take that and run with anything in that capacity. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like there's just so many more things I can get into. I know it's long-winded answer, but I can go through a bunch of process on everything.
No, man, we do.
Give us another one.
No, we love it, man. We love
Give
it.
us another one.
Yeah, like I said, playing fantasy football like you're wrong is always a good one. I've made a ton of mistakes. So like as a content creator, a good advice I can give to everyone is when I first entered the space as a content creator, because it's a little more saturated now than when it was, it was like 2011, 2012 when I started to get into the space and have kind of start to pick up steam. But when I first started, like as a content creator, I thought like felt like the pressure of like trying to become up like skeleton keys, right? Like I've got to find the next stat that's important, or this next thing that seems like it's going to unlock, like you have to follow this, like this is the way you're going to win your fantasy league. And over time I learned like there really are no like actual skeleton keys. I stopped kind of chasing like the creating stats angle. I started to just focus more on like, hey, how can I help people win with like what we have that's actionable, and try to provide that kind of take data and provide it to people of like saying this is why this is useful, and try to distill like big top down angles and say like this is why this is useful and things like that, instead of just trying to say like I'm going to come up with the next great stat or try to come up with something else that maybe like can change the game, because there is no skeleton key. The beauty about fantasy football is there's just too many variables. Like it doesn't matter what individual player you have, team structure, like all these things. And then I always use the analogy, like my grandma, even today, like all the stuff I know, like my grandma could beat me in a fantasy league, like a one-off fantasy league based on a number of variables, right? Like injuries, like players bust, whatever. But over the course of 100 leagues I play with my grandma, like I'm a cooker. Like it's like, it's gonna happen. But that's the gift and the curse about fantasy football. That's what makes it frustrating to some, but like that's the beauty. We wouldn't have a game if we could if everything was unlocked.
I love that. I love that part. I love that take about, how one time you can be right. One time it can happen for you, man. And
we all have those dudes in our home league, or like,
yeah.
That gamer in our home league, and you're just like, they show up, they come with a magazine and maybe it's a month old, or like something like there's been injuries. They draft a player off of ADP that's been hurt, and they somehow find a way to win, or they beat you in a week, and you're just like, what the hell is that?
Bro, I drafted in one last night, man. Like it's a home league here, man. And it's like my buddy and a couple of some of his friends, and like, dude, they're all over the board. Like, and it just like I can't get like a grasp for it. And I'm like looking at my team at the end of it, and I'm like, what just happened? Like what just happened here, man?
Literally though. Oh my goodness. Next question we got is, in the past, what are things you had to uncover in order for you to like a certain player, be on a certain player? Obviously probably different points of the season when drafting, but what would be some things you had to uncover in order to be on someone?
Well, I think something like this from a top-down stance is important now, because we've been talking about like these players literally for 6 months now. Like, I mean, we're at the end of this cycle here where the season's finally going to start. And one thing that we tend to do over the course of summer that always has driven me crazy is that we kind of talk about like these players in like a vacuum of what they're going to do over the whole season, when we know that in fantasy football, there are just very few players at each position that are good weeks 1 through 18. Like it's a very finite number of players. And fantasy football is always literally about like, hey, were you in on like the right pocket of production for this player, whether it be like the opening month of the season due to a favorable schedule, or out on a player to like maybe a rougher opening of the schedule, or it's a rookie, right? Like we know that historically, like rookies, back half of the season, you might ramp up. You're not necessarily worried about being right in September and October on some rookies, right? And like that's tried and true for like yearly. Like you can just pick out any year and find guys. It was the same thing last year, right? Like we had Xavier Worthy at the back half last year, Brian Thomas, even guys like Jalen McMillan, right? Like found usefulness in rosters in fantasy lineups towards the end of the season. But for so long we're talking about these players and just like these seasonal outcomes. And people always talk about like, this guy was the wide receiver 9 last year, this guy was the wide receiver 12, and he's going wide receiver 25 this year. Like, how can we let this happen? It's like that shit doesn't matter. Like it doesn't, like unless you're like it matters for if you're like the wide receiver 1 or like the wide receiver 2. But like a lot of times when we're talking about these guys, like Garrett Wilson's like a great example, right? Like Garrett Wilson finished at overall points as like wide receiver 10, but he's like wide receiver 21 in points per game. He just played the whole year. That's why he got points. Like he didn't miss any time. He's got to keep accruing points while some guys maybe were out, but it's not necessarily like he was like impacting your lineup on a weekly basis to where his fantasy finish was. And you always see this stuff like highlighted this time of the year, and it's just like, I'm writing up these games every week, every time in season. We're trying to stay on the pulse of these trends, trying to make like really kind of educated decisions based on like what's going on the weekly level with these players. But we just tend to talk about these players just from a seasonal stance this time of the year, and it's like we know this inherently. Like these very few of these guys will be really, really great from weeks 1 to 18. But when I'm looking at like specific players, it could be a number of things. I'm definitely looking at like team environment first. Like, I mean, even someone that uses a lot of data, I like to draft guys on good teams, man. You know who scores fantasy points? To offenses that score offenses that score. Doesn't mean I avoid all dudes that like are on bad teams, but I try to pinpoint like, hey, these are the offenses that are signal for some success this year. It could be even a team that was like bad last year that we're looking for like some regression in some capacity. So I'm looking at like team environment first. I'm looking at an opportunity for those players, right? Like we know fantasy football, like efficiency stats aren't sticky. Even though we do this every year, we're going to argue about someone's yards per carry or their explosive run rate. But all that matters, are you getting damn football in fantasy football? Like we start there. Are you getting opportunity, right? Are they throwing the football to you? Are they handing the football off to you? We start there. So you look at like the team opportunities, the team environments, and then like, hey, can this player get the football? Do we believe this team's going to be good? And is this player getting the football? Those are things we look for. Or does this player have like an opportunity to have a pathway open for him, right? Like, if like an RG Harvey is probably an example of this, right? Like I fully expect J.K. Dobbins to probably edge him in touches to open the year. But is there a chance, come November that flips, right? And like there's a different spot, in an offense that we care about, a Sean Payton offense. There's a number of these guys, like, as you go down the list, especially when you're talking about taking like players that are going to be like bench players versus maybe upside plays, right? Like when you think about where guys like Matthew Golden come off the board, right? Versus wide receivers, are you feeling a little more insulation with a guy like Cooper Kupp? Maybe, but are you also, when you're saying, I want to add my wide receiver 5, I want it to be a guy that maybe weeks 9 through 17 is, operating as a wide receiver 2+. Like these are all decisions like you make when you just kind of move through the draft. But yeah, definitely like team environment and player opportunities. You got to start there.
Word. Just kind of off topic, like what's a team that you were kind of mentioning as far as a better environment this year than they previously had last year? What's a team that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, the number one team, I think, when you're talking about bottom end teams,
Yeah.
like the first team would be the Patriots.
Yeah.
Like the Patriots would be like the first starting off team. Obviously, we're gonna have 3 starting offensive linemen, 2 2 veterans, and Morgan Moses and Garrett Bradbury. We'll see what Will Campbell does. He's a rookie left tackle. We definitely keep expectations in check, even if you were a high draft pick. But they go from like literally the least productive wide receiver room in the NFL. They add Stephon Diggs, they add Kyle Williams, they already have Demario Douglas in year 3. Hunter Henry's been a usable player. You've got Drake May, hopefully, in year 2 taking another step forward. And then the addition of Josh McDaniels. I always talk about like, hey, there's a reason Josh McDaniels has gotten a chance to fail as a head coach multiple times, and it's because every time he's gotten a chance to coach offense, he can coach offense. You go back to that last full year he had at the Raiders, that team completely punched above its weight class. You go even to the last year he had in New England, where he had basically a shell of Cam Newton, and he was able to coax out a competitive offense, even through Cam Newton not even really able to throw the ball that year. So I definitely look at them as like a bottom end team. There are some teams that we know why they kind of failed last year, like the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like the Dallas Cowboys had a big fall off because, Dak Prescott got hurt. Like there's some signal there. There's some other teams I think at the bottom that look like they could be in favorable spots. Like the Giants have a rougher schedule, but just the improved quarterback play, they have an opportunity here, getting Andrew Thomas on the field. Like those are teams there too. And then Michael Penix getting to start the full season could be a team that, boosts the Falcons. The Falcons definitely have a weird range of outcomes, right? Like there's a scenario here where they're just not good because the offensive line now is banged up entering the season, but there's also a scenario where like they're like a poor version of like what we saw from like the Bengals last year, where they just have to play in all these shootouts like they did in 2 of the 3 games at Penix last year because the defense isn't good enough and they have enough playmakers. And I do believe in Zach Robinson, but those are some teams kind of at the bottom. Obviously, you got Cam Ward, joining the Titans. Wish that they had a little more receiver help there outside of Calvin Ridley, but Brian Callahan is a guy that also, he didn't light the world on fire from some of the things we saw from him schematically in year 1, but there also was a reason he was hired as an offensive mind too. And maybe he was just kind of hamstrung by the personnel. Their offensive line is significantly better too than where we left off. So there's a few teams like at the bottom where it's like, all right, like you can try to point to like a North Star and it's like, hey, this is where maybe too much of last year's priced in for some of these guys.
I love everything you said about all those players and all those teams. the Pats. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I'm up here in New England. I love hearing
Unfortunately,
that.
we're up here in New England.
Unfortunately. Well, I should say the Bears too. The Bears would be the other obvious one, right? Like,
let's go, baby. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Oh
Oh,
yes,
boy.
I love all of this. So obviously I think you've been on record for talking about your love for Travion Henderson with the Pats, and so I won't lie and say that influenced me just about this much going into drafts last weekend. As I pretty sure I left. I think I had 6 drafts, and I left with him in 3 of them for sure. Left with Steph Diggs and a couple, and Mondre as well. And the Bears, again, man, that's another team that I've been on record with Caleb Williams in that group, and just saying like how much like I'm looking forward to what's going on that they have going on here, because it's not like he completely stunk the place up. I said it a million times. Like, he was just overdrafted last year, kind of to some of the points you were making. Overdrafted in this year, I think people are still kind of afraid of him, and they haven't opened up to it. So I'm excited about that group for sure. So, so in the past, like, what are we just hit that. So what are some markers about your process? What are some markers are helping you identify these players for this season?
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely looking at team environment, like opportunities, and then structurally, like definitely calibrate whatever you want to do player wise, like kind of around your league. Definitely, what is your scoring settings? Is it start 2 quarterbacks? Is it how many receivers do you have to start? How many flex spots are like? These are all things that kind of determine like how you want to, structurally build. Then you factor in like, where am I picking now in the draft, right? Because draft slot has a lot of impact on kind of what pockets of players you'll be drafting around. Snake drafts get a bad rap. I mean, if I had a preference, I would do auctions, just because makes it's an even playing field, right? It just gives the entire board the opportunity to draft how they want. And I do appreciate that, but I feel like people always are like, oh, if you do a snake draft, like that's the dumb version of fantasy football. I would actually argue the opposite, because what snake drafts force you to do is it forces you to make binary decisions in like pockets of the draft where like it's easy to get these players wrong. Like, you're going to get a lot of these binary player choices wrong because there's just not a lot separating the players you're picking from at certain tiers, right? Look at this year, especially. I mean, if say you have like 102 or 103, 104, and you've got to pick, you're like, oh, wow, like it's half PPR. I only start 2 receivers. Maybe I'm pushed to running back. You still have to choose B. John Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CMC, Saquon Barkley. It's easy to like get that wrong, right? These wide receivers this year,
Right.
like it's like wide receiver 2 through 12 is like nothing. It's as good as it's ever been. I cannot remember a top 12 receivers like in the offseason, like being this good entering a draft. And we're going to get some of these guys wrong. Like, we inherently know that. That's why I said of playing football, like how I'm going to be wrong. One things that people always get wrong this time of year is they focus too much on like winning the draft, right? Listen, we've all played enough damn fantasy football. When you get to January, if you have half your roster intact, like from the one you drafted, like golf clap that, man. Like, you did good. Like, but so many people are like, want to just grade my screenshot, or like, how do I feel kind of draft? Like, there's just so much more that you're going to have to deal with, between busts and injuries, playing waivers, like all these different things. Yeah, so I mean, there's just like so many different things like I try to look for, but like I said, it all starts, like I said, though, like approaching it like I'm gonna be wrong on certain things. It helps being able to play in a lot of leagues. I understand some people listening and be like, oh, well, I only have 2 leagues, so like I'm gonna draft Trevion Henderson in both of them, and hopefully it works out, right? Like, I get it, right? But yeah, I mean, that's the thing when people talk about snake drafts. They're like, oh, that's the dumb way to play fantasy football. Like, it forces you to make hard decisions, though, in terms of players, because a lot of times you come on a board, you're like, oh, sometimes it's easy to be like, I definitely want this one player. But a lot of times you're like, oh, there's like 4 players I could pick here, like pretty easily. And you're always driving yourself crazy. Well, I get the one wrong.
Yeah, no, I think like you're spot on, man. Like about like the wide receivers and just like overall, man. Because like again, like the 6 drafts, man, like I've had over the weekend. I did one of my home leagues here, man, live draft, and I drafted Nico Collins at 7, and people were like, "Ooh, wow." Well, then turn around, and then the next thing I know, man, my draft later on that night, some guy takes Nico Collins at like 5, and I'm like, that's a little aggressive, but still, though, like to your point, like there's probably about 16 to 17 players in that range that, like, if you walk away with, like, you're feeling incredibly good. But again, like that's all right now, because who knows? Because last year, having a roster that had guys like Chris Olave and Ken Walker and Alvin Kamara right? Like those guys coming down the stretch, even like as we talk about Joe Mixon, we talked about him, like those guys that helped you early on, Montgomery, they weren't there for you. And that
Aaron
was
Jones. There was a
yes,
lot of dudes.
yes,
There was
yeah.
a lot of the old running backs were good to start, and then when we got to the end, we were limping to the finish line with a lot of those guys.
Oh,
They helped
man.
out, but that's why I talk about like the pockets of production, like and why things matters and just different variables, right? Like that's what makes the Rashee Rice thing so interesting. It's like, how do you value if you say he plays the opening month? How do you value the opportunity to potentially get a guy that could maybe you can get at wide receiver 25 to 30, and now he's a wide receiver 1 the opening month of the season, which we can still have another debate whether that's even going to be true or not. But like, what's the value of starting 3-1 or 4-0? Like that's pretty big deal too in setting yourself up. Like if you start 3-1 or 4-0, like the odds you miss your playoffs are probably gonna be pretty thin. Like you're putting yourself in a position to win. So then you talk about like, oh, all right, so he's gonna miss the middle of the year where we have buys. Maybe some guys have gotten hurt, and like I can't put him on IR because our league doesn't have an IR spot for guys that are suspended. There's just a lot of different variables surrounding the Rashee Rice as a whole. There's a lot of moving parts with that I think is going to maybe when we look back into like in January, and like he just might be like the centerpiece of like what dictated a lot of what happened in fantasy football this year.
He's been a very popular subject for Nick and I, like on our shows. Nick has been a guy, he's been bought into him from the very beginning. I was very hesitant about him just because I didn't know anything about the suspension, and I've always kind of operated. And I don't know, some fantasy managers are different, right? Like I've always operated in space that like, in the upper part of the draft. Like I don't want to. I'm like Ruben Pfeffer, you know what I mean? From Along Comes Polly. I don't want to take all those risks. I don't want to take all those risks up top. You know what I mean? Like it's like I just don't want to. But again, like now that we kind of have a little bit of information about him, depending on how your build goes, if he ends up being like your wide receiver 4 or like your wide receiver 5 in a build, like you can take that risk now. I mean, do you feel that way now as if he's your wide receiver 5 or your wide receiver 4 and like let's just call it a 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, maybe 1 or 2 flex league? Would you feel comfortable taking him there?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now that he's dropped, right? Like we knew when he had kind of gotten steam, in the summer, like when he was like when he was going the second round at one point, in the third round. That was before we even knew anything, and like that was definitely a lot more risk. Now that he's going, like I said, like wide receiver 25 to 30, you're getting him in, like you said, your wide receiver 4 on some rosters. If you've gone wide receiver heavier, you have a lot more insulation in that area. I also think it's also dependent to like how your league is structured. Like something like the FFPC, there were the playoffs start in week 13. It's a little different because like if he gets 8 games and let's say we go 4 weeks, they have the hearing, and the NFL still takes another 2 weeks to decide, right? And then like now he still plays 6 weeks, but now his suspension starts week 7. You still have the bye week factored in. He might not be available for the start of some playoffs. If your playoffs start in week 15 and it's like a regular home league, like that's a little different because then you would expect him to be like to have the barbell availability, like at the front, at the end, and then in the middle, you're thin. So I feel like in a lot of those types of formats, I feel like I'm my quality as being able to fantasy football manager, I can work around that. Now, there are some other things that factor in that. How deep are the benches? Do you have the availability to put them on IR? Some spots you will be able to. Some leagues do let you put a suspended player on IR. Those are all different things that kind of factor into the decision. And then I think too, like your onboarding roster of what you're putting them onto. Like, do you want Rashee Rice on a team where you've taken other inherent risks to stop, like to start? Like, I brought up Tyreek Hill earlier. Do you want Rashee Rice on a Tyreek Hill team? Do you want to stack those risks like that? Like, you know what I mean? That's definitely an all or nothing mentality, right? But if you've had the draft open favorably where you feel really good about your top 3 receivers, you might say, hey, like I feel really good about the insulation here. He can join this room, and then I could potentially have like an absolute just behemoth of a team, for the fantasy playoffs. Those are all things that factor in. Is it a keeper league? Like all these other variables that can kind of go into it. But I've taken the more optimistic approach now that he's where he's going, because him starting the year actually where it is necessarily worse than if he were just suspended, because I think the suspension would have been overvalued. I wrote about this in the past too. It's been a while since we had a suspended player, but I go back to like Julian Edelman in 2018 when he was suspended for PEDs. I remember writing an article about how everyone was undervaluing him. He felt like wide receiver 30 in ADP. Chris Hogan went way up the draft board. And then when Edelman came back after the first month, he just smashed like the rest of the way out. The rest of the season, he was the wide receiver 12, the rest of the way out. And it's like, all right, so like you caught all this value at wide receiver 30. That existed in the range of outcomes. Also, him playing the opening month potentially hurts Xavier Worthy now, because the whole point of like Xavier Worthy's theme was that, hey, Xavier Worthy's going to get the opening month to show I can be a focal point of this offense, and I can make it hard for Rashee Rice to come back and walk back into that target share. Now they're going to be battling each other that opening month. And what if Rashee Rice just plays better the opening month? Then if Worthy plays good while Rashee Rice is out, he comes back. The whole thing's going to be like, all right, well, listen, when we already saw the opening month of the season happen, it's going to go right back. Rashee Rice is going to come right back and start hooping again. Like it's it. So like, yeah, so there's a lot of things that impacts here, right? Like him starting the season potentially actually has a weird ripple effect on the season that like probably wasn't getting priced in for the other guys too, as well.
Scary hours, man. Scary hours.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of Rashee Rice, like, look, I've been taking them in builds that I feel really great about my receivers. Like in terms of, like you said, you don't want to match risk with risk, right? You don't want to do that. But you do want to do a nice build where it's like Rashee Rice is going to be in a build where he's my wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and even then, if I get Rice my wide receiver 3, like my next wide receiver 4 could be a Rashid Shaheed, something like that, like where it's like, again, taking a stance on a player where I know he can explode later on in the year. Like that's just kind of where it is. The Konami code segment. Data for past mobile quarterbacks. So basically just talking about mobile quarterbacks in past. Obviously, you're so famous for the Konami code that John didn't know about.
Well, I mean, he's younger. He's younger than me. I'm old. That's a polite way of saying I'm old.
No. Definitely a moment that I think now, like neither one of us will ever forget. I know I will never ever forget this. Forget that moment. And I always tell people, it was the most down to earth conversation, and it was really quite comical, actually. But even with that being said, like I think it's made something happen here. You've always been somebody who has always went out of their way to be like, yo, like what's up? How are things going? We had a great conversation. I'm thinking you remember it.
Yeah.
It's the title of the show tonight, Getting Rich for the People here. Great conversation with you at Rich's, man. Just like not even really about, just fantasy football, man. We just talked about life and, talked about, our families and stuff like that. And it was just like a really dope moment for me, actually. One of the highlights for me, just to be sitting there talking to you just about, something other than football and having like a real in-depth conversation. But yeah, don't be like Johnny Main. Know about the Konami cheat code, baby.
If you're thinking about going over to like the expo or something like that, you would be shocked how little football actually gets talked. Like it's, we're all not really sitting around talking all this. Like when we're drafting and stuff in the drafts we do, but like when we're all like hanging out, it's more about getting to know us as people, because we've all listened to each other on podcasts, heard the football takes and all that stuff. It's more about getting to know everyone as people and building that kind of camaraderie. Like, listen, when I met you last year, we joked about it, but when we saw each other this year, it was totally different, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, yeah, you got your shot, Nick. Go ahead, man. You went ahead and threw it out there, man. Go ahead.
No, I love it. No, this is exactly what I wanted to happen.
Just because you were wrong about Joe Mixon, but go ahead.
That's fine. I will take my shots when I'll take them, and then I won't take them. It's okay. I love it. Just the data behind past mobile quarterbacks, and in terms of histories past about mobile quarterbacks. Like what led you to some of those guys in the past, and then obviously we'll talk about the future. But in general, what were some things in the past that led you to some of those mobile quarterbacks, and you becoming so famous for the comic.
I mean, listen, like I said, we take this back to last year. I'm definitely not someone like what I'm doing is not important, like on the scale of life. Like, definitely don't take myself seriously on any level to that degree. Like, I have any type of like real importance in life, but I am known for like that. That was kind of like my jumping off point was writing the Konami Code article. It was back at Number Fire for JJ Zachariason at the time when he was there. And it was literally about Tim Tebow and the value of mobile quarterbacks in fantasy football and how they were undervalued because the scoring was weighted. You know, you get more points for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns than you did the inverse, right? Like for the passing stuff, it was just weighted. Unless you're in like these 6-point passing touchdown leagues and you have goofy scoring, because I used to always get the pushback too. But we all know we were playing on any DFS site or any of the general population sites. Like it is weighted for quarterbacks. It still is. It's definitely evolved over the years too. It's pretty interesting, like everything that's happened. Because also we're in an era where like quarterback rushing, we haven't seen the cap yet. Like where we're going to see it bounce back until we have like 32 of these guys. We don't know how far it can go, right? Because when I first started doing it, it was a very finite number of guys. I mean, and you had a lot of these guys that came in with mobility, like a Tebow or maybe even like a Cam, that had the rushing ability, but not necessarily were like great passers. Justin Fields is like our very current Konami Code guy. He's like our old school definition of Konami Code. Justin Fields is that, where you get that rushing production to build the floor, but he not necessarily can punch through the ceiling because he never gets like the passing juice to kind of go along with it. And what happened since I first wrote that article was quarterbacks started to evolve, and we started to see more guys that were great passers also be athletes. Like it just human evolution, right? Like we were eventually going to start look at even like punters at the combine and stuff now. Like we're just getting a lot more, like everyone just becoming better athletes. And it was only a matter of time before quarterbacks started becoming better athletes as well. And we had like an infusion of guys that now can throw and pass and give you kind of the best of both worlds. It used to be like you'd have a random one-off, like 2010 Vic, like he put it together for 1 year and like had like an awesome season that you just couldn't beat in fantasy. Cam in 2015, right? Like that year with the Panthers, like, and then he just never kind of recaptured that spark. But now we've got guys like Josh Allen and Lamar and Jalen Hurts, and we believe Jaden Daniels is of that archetype. If you look at all his pass protection going back to college, like these are guys that give you that dual threat of giving you really good rushing production plus front end passing. Like these guys that can throw 30 plus touchdowns and flirt with like 800 plus rushing yards and then give you double digit rushing touchdowns, which count as a touchdown and a half passing. It's just really hard to beat those guys in fantasy football. And it's really interesting to see like how the impact on the game that they've had, because we're starting to see like more quarterback designed runs. Like you look at last year, quarterbacks in terms of designed runs, 16%. And it's again, that's not even a lot, right? Like when you think about 16%, there's still 84% of the other runs that aren't quarterback runs, but that's still like all-time high. So it's like there's still so much room this could still go. Like I said, until we have 32 of these guys, like there's no real limit on to where we can go, because these guys are coming into the NFL with more decorated as not only athletes, but having passing acumen too as well. So it is fun to see it. Like we really only have like one guy this year, and it's Fields, man. It's kind of the old school Konami guy.
I like that. I like that for sure. Yeah. Go Jets, baby. Go Jets.
Oh Lord. No, let me ask you a sidebar.
Yeah.
Just because like for me, like one guy that like I am like, and maybe I may be completely off, or maybe just taking a different approach. But for me, like Jalen Hurts is the guy for me, like at the top tier of quarterbacks this year. For me, like he's the guy that like I'm trying to leave drafts with. Like it's not Allen, it's not Lamar, it's Jalen Hurts. And I think like obviously the tush push is one reason why for sure. And the other reason is I think like the Eagles will be in a few more shootouts than they were in last year. Like we were kind of talking about AJ Brown a few weeks ago, and I was dumbfounded to find the stat about him as far as his receiving yards in the fourth quarter. That like it was practically non-existent. So like I just kind of curious, just from a fan perspective, like what's your take on Jalen Hurts and where do you have him ranked in your rankings?
Yeah, I'll fold it into just the kind of elite quarterbacks in general, because it is a different layout this year than I think previous years. at the quarterback position, and it coincides with the way a lot of just draft boards fall in totality. So we kind of have these big four, right, of the archetype that I just laid out, like the guys that can give you like the really can flirt with like front end rushing and front end passing. You have Allen, Jackson, Hurts and Jada Daniels. Then you have like a little bit of skip from Burrow. And it's not like Burrow and like some of these other guys are zeros in the run game. That's the other part that's different, is like we even have like the pocket passers give you a little bit. It's just inconsistent. It's not like a weekly thing for the rushing production. But we kind of have like a little bit of a lull at like wide receiver this year. I've been kind of labeling a little bit the wide receiver dead zone to a degree, like the old school running back dead zone. Like right around round 3 in your typical leagues, you'll start to see like this, like wide receivers kind of really flatten out, and there's not a big difference between like the guys that are going in like that wide receiver 3 range, like the Garrett Wilsons, the Marvin Harrison Juniors, right, and even to the guys like that go like wide receiver 20 to wide receiver 30. So it's really kind of advantageous to kind of look at those front end quarterbacks, or in years past you would just wait on quarterback, but you're saying, hey, there's only 4 of these dudes. Now they brush up in terms of ADP against like this pocket of receivers that's pretty soft. I can add one of these guys if I want. You can even mix in like a onesie like George Kittle too in that spot. So I've been playing it by ear in that spot. Like typically I never like to be the gamer that drafts the quarterback first, because you don't know when QB2 is coming off the board. Like you're always at the mercy. Like, so if it's like, all right, I'm going to take Josh Allen, I'm at a lull. But then the QB2 doesn't go off for 2 more rounds, right? Which rarely happens, but it exists. You never know when QB2 is coming off. So I usually try to get I always want to be the latest of those 4 is the guy I'm getting most often. And it has been Jalen Hurts this year, which is fun because I have Jalen Hurts as actually 3 this year. And I think you can make a pretty strong case for him to be 2, and you kind of hit on a couple of the reasons. Well, first of all, he only threw 360 passes last year. Like there's just not going to happen again. There's just so many avenues to where we're just going to get so much positive kind of regression here. Everyone's favorite phrase, positive regression. But use it last year. All the receivers were hurt. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert were only on the field in unison for 79 of his dropbacks all year. That's it. 18% of his whole dropbacks. So just by them being a byproduct of having their core healthier, he's going to be in a better position to have more efficient dropbacks than throw more. And then the Eagles go from having our 4th easiest schedule last year to having our 4th hardest in 2025. It's the most significant swing of any team. They play 10 games against 2024 playoff teams. They only trailed for 134 second half snaps last year. That was only 24.5% of their entire second half snaps. They only trailed for 62 total plays in the 4th quarter last year. And when you look at Hurts in the first half of games, he was 14th in the league in dropbacks per game. And the Eagles are never going to be like top 5. That's just that's not their DNA. But if you tell me that Jalen Hurts is like around the middle of the league in dropbacks, that's like a significant change. Because in the second half of games, he only averaged 11.3 dropbacks per game. That was 36th in the NFL. You look at last year, he had 86 total dropbacks in the 4th quarter, all of last season. Like if you just go back to 2023, he had 140. Like that's almost 2 whole games worth of just 1 quarter's worth of passing, right? In totality. And like you talked about, we were talking about AJ Brown, right? In the second half last year, AJ Brown had 32 total targets. Like that's it in the whole second half of last season. And he was wide receiver 5 in first half targets per game, and then wide receiver 60 in second half, because they just never had to throw. They were just dusting teams. So it's going to be a significant change. Jalen Hurts has also been my favorite. Tush push passes. We live on another year. He's only Derrick Henry. Only Derrick Henry has a longer streak than Jalen Hurts of double-digit rushing touchdown seasons.
Wow.
It's just wild, man. Like you get and we talk about like the scoring being weighted. You just get those rushing touchdowns. They count for a touchdown and a half passing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's significant.
Yeah.
Very.
No, I love it. I love it, man. All right. So we got something here we're going to do. I've been just like geeking out about this like all day. Like I've been looking forward to this moment right here. So we're going to do a blind ranking segment. We're going to give you 5 players and we're going to have you rank them out.
All right.
DJ Moore.
Let's see. The first guy's always a tough because I don't know how much worse or better it's going to get. I'm thinking DJ Moore, though. I think I'll say 4 just to leave it open. I'm going to go 4. You want me to give like a take on the player?
Yeah. The literal next thing I was going to ask you is like, how you feeling about him this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in between. At cost, he's dropped a little bit, so I feel a little more comfortable now than where we opened. But at cost, I've liked Rome a little bit more. I'm excited to look. I'm infatuated with year 2 wide receivers, anyways, right? Like year 2 wide receivers historically have been like the guys that have provided like the biggest bang for your buck, because there's a reason for this, right? So fantasy gamers in general, like they like to draft something they've already seen, right? You will have rookies get steamed up and have ADP, but usually they come with like significant draft capital and like and high expectations. But a lot of times these year 2 wide receivers that end up being values, it's because they didn't have like great rookie seasons, right? Or maybe let down on some initial expectations. But no pocket or receiver in terms of like years in the league pushes back and becomes a better bang for buck than year 2, which is like usually because they let down. And it was true again last year, right? And yeah, like we had the smash with JSN in year 2 off the discount of the letdown. But like when you look at some other guys that also beat ADP, Jordan Addison beat ADP, Zay Flowers beat ADP. We also had guys like Marvin Mims, Quentin Johnston was left for dead. He was like, if you drafted Quentin Johnston in a best ball leagues, granted he was harder to get right in a weekly league, but he was a supreme value in these best ball leagues. Like he had spike weeks for you. I mean, he had as many red zone targets as Lad McConkey, which is
wild.
Which is criminal activity, by the way.
Yeah, that is
criminal activity.
Very.
It's criminal activity, but it happened. It happened though. But I'm saying like, yeah. So like, I'm always like kind of glom onto these year 2 wide receivers that are depressed. A guy like Rome. I think Ben Johnson's going to use Rome in a lot better capacity as well. But also, I mean, DJ Moore is going to get used in a better capacity. Like I talked about with Matt Harmon about this, and he talked about, if you think like no humble brag talking to Matt Harmon talked to DJ Moore at the Super Bowl, and that's the real humble brag. And just talk to him about
right, that is a humble brag.
Talk to him about some of the scheme stuff that he was involved in, and just getting those empty calorie screen targets where like you're just in space with nothing to work with. And he kind of talked about like that's kind of what the offense was. He's going to be utilized in capacity with a lot more versatility. We know he's a player that can create after the catch. We're already hearing whispers too about him like playing a little bit of like running back stuff too.
I've seen that actually. I've seen that today.
I mean, that's tough to like put like an actual quantify and say how much are we actually running out, because we've done this with running backs before too. Like this running back's gonna be playing some receiver this year. Like okay, like it turns out to be kind of nothing, like very rarely. So we'll kind of see what happens, but I'm neutral kind of on now that he's fallen, but I'll say I don't know where we're going, so I'm gonna put him at 4 because like he's a guy I don't have on a ton of rosters either.
That's fair.
All right.
Next one I got on the list for you is Chuba Hubbard.
Ah, shit. All right, so it's mixed position.
Chuba Hubbard.
Flex. So we're just going. We ain't gonna throw you no real curveballs. It's just in the space right here.
All right. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll put Hubbard. I would put Hubbard 3. I'll put him 3. I'll put him ahead of DJ Moore just for the potential of like touchdown equity. Listen, there are some red flags with Chuba Hubbard, right? Like 2 down archetype, probably is going to lose some receiving work because the 2 years he's been in the NFL, he's caught some passes, but it's like kind of like Ramondre has caught passes, like which is good. He's going to get the rug pulled on him this year with Trevion, is that they haven't really added anything to the offense, him catching passes. So I don't think that he's going to have that with Rico Dowdle this year. But I think the touchdown equity still remains for Chuba Hubbard. He is very like James Conner-ish types peripherals. Like this is a guy who's gotten better as a runner every year in the NFL. This offensive line is set up to be a good run blocking unit. So PPR, I would maybe flip those 2 guys. I think in half PPR, I probably will side with the running back touchdown equity and kind of being like the North Star.
All right, cool. And like actually, like one thing, like you mentioned Chuba Hubbard and his passing work. It was funny because like I was doing like some research during the offseason about Chuba Hubbard in the passing game, and I was like, oh man, like he caught a lot of balls. But he didn't go anywhere. To your point, he literally went nowhere with them, man.
This is the Leonard Fournette corollary, right? Like remember Leonard Fournette was catching all his passes from Brady, and you're like, well, he's getting 6 yards a catch. Like for fantasy football, it's cool because like they stack up in the PPR. But like for an offense, when you're looking, it's like, hey, when a team is going to start changing things that didn't work for them last year, like that's a big signal, right? It's like, yes, he caught out passes, but they didn't add anything to the offense. They're going to try to replace these touches. Hopefully, if they're smart, they will. Like that's what the Patriots looked at, right? With the Trevion, like we need to infuse our running back position with guys that are going to do something with these opportunities.
Dig that. All right, next player. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Tyreek the Freak.
Yeah, I'll put Tyreek 2. I don't know where, like I said, I'll leave my one spot open. I have taken more of the pro side with Tyreek Hill. I know the vibes aren't necessarily the best around the Miami Dolphins. I think Tyreek does have multiple outs, though. I've talked about the Dolphins a lot this offseason, kind of what happened to them last year. Obviously, they end up facing like all the too high stuff at the highest rate in the NFL, not only because they have the fastest receivers, but they weren't able to push anybody out of those coverages because they couldn't run the football to the same degree that they ran the first 2 years under Mike McDaniel. I do believe that they're going to run the football a little bit better. How much remains to be seen. You know, obviously you get James Daniel at left guard, Savi at right guard. You hopefully get Austin Jackson back for the full season. Devin Achane had really nice splits with and without Austin Jackson. The going from Terran Arms to Patrick Paul is just a net loss. There's no way we can work around that. The only thing you can really say is that Armstead had missed so much time that like he was already in and out of lineup. It wasn't like he was a full-time player those first 2 years anyways. So maybe you have that. But I do think that they're not going to just run back what they did offensively last year because it just didn't work. It stems off of the conversation we had. Them throwing all those short passes to Jonnu and all those short passes to Achane, it was the worst version of the Mike McDaniel offense we've seen. There's no way that they want to come back and do that same stuff. And we heard Mike McDaniel talk about this early in the offseason. He was like, we have to be able to get teams out of those coverages and be able to kind of generate those explosives. I mean, the Miami Dolphins, who literally are built like how we used to build Madden rosters, where we're sorting by one attribute. One attribute, baby. One attribute. We're sorting by speed and speed alone. And like that's how they built the roster. It's like Mike McDaniel talked about, like, hey, we got to start freeing stuff. They had 3 passing touchdowns from outside the red zone, like the fastest team in the NFL. Like that's just inexcusable to have roll over. I also think Tyreek, even though he's taken like a little bit of flack this year, I actually don't think what he's done is necessarily like that big of a negative. Like him saying that, hey, maybe Devin Achane shouldn't be the goal line back. Like, who cares? He's not the coach, right? Like how, and then Tua holding him accountable for last year, how last year ended. That's exactly what Tua should do. Like Tua's the leader of the football team. He should run the spade on Tyreek and say, dude, that way that happened last year, like we can't have you on board if that's how it's going to start. But also, like you look at what's happened also outside around Tyreek Hill this offseason, like he did get divorced and moved on from that part of his life. Like maybe that's a weight off his shoulders. I don't know, mentally if that's going to do anything, but he lost a lot of weight. Like this dude still looks like he's yoked. He can run super fast. We see him in all these races. And then if Tyreek were to get traded, right? If the Dolphins are trading Tyreek like Devontae Adams was in the spot last year, if they start the season slow and they have to start making these moves, obviously he's the number one signal of guy that could get moved. Any team trading for Tyreek Hill, 1 is probably contending to win, and 2 probably wants to add Tyreek Hill to their offense and wants to utilize him. I look at Tyreek still against some of the guys he's fallen to, like in that 3rd and 4th round, and listen, man, I think Courtland Sutton's a solid player. I'm not winning a football league, fantasy football league, taking Courtland Sutton in the 4th round. I might win it with Tyreek Hill in the 4th round.
Like fair. That's fair. No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
And so, and again, roster, how your roster allocation is to that point plays a role into it. Is Tyreek your wide receiver 3? Is he your wide receiver 2? Like those are decisions that like maybe it impacts. I think especially in these leagues where Tyreek is now falling to where he could be my wide receiver 3, especially it works from both spots where you draft. If I'm drafting at the end of the round, end of the opening round, and I'm in a spot to where, hey, I miss out on the running backs. Maybe I'm a little scared by the Achane injury. I open something like Nico, Puka, Neighbors, Puka, whatever, some iteration. And then I'm in the 4th round and I have a chance to add Tyreek Hill as my wide receiver 3. Like if Tyreek hits, what are you going to do to my Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, Tyreek Hill team? Like, exactly. I mean, like, what are you going to do? And you want me to pass? You want me to take Marvin Harrison Jr. there? Like, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it, man. I can't do it. So again, like there's obviously some nuance. Like I don't always take Tyreek Hill, but I still think when he's falling like to where he's falling, I at least want to be in because the times where you're right on Tyreek Hill, I think are just a bigger gain as turning to a bigger hit than if you miss on Tyreek Hill in the 4th round. I think it's like a more of a modest miss at that area. And honestly, Tyreek Hill failing, I don't think he'll still be a 0. It'll be a lot like last year. The worst iteration of Tyreek Hill, and we were taking him 102, 103 last year, and he was like delivering wide receiver 3 per game production. Like if you're taking him wide receiver 24 now or wide receiver 18 and he's delivering wide receiver 3 production, that's a lot different than where we were a year ago. So I mean, I've been a little more bullish on him. Like I said, I don't always take him, but I'm at least open to the idea of like, I'm trying to win these leagues, man. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to win them.
Swing for the fences.
Oh man,
Literally.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I wish I would have had you in my ear this weekend on some of my drafts with him, because I totally, like, he burned me so bad last year. Because I
get it.
did. Yeah, we like me and Nick were in the we were in draft night out last year, and I think I took him 102, 103 last year, and still was able to, still, to your point, like if you put it together correctly, like anybody, if they put it together correctly, like you can still have a solid group. So now this year, like the discount on them, like it can absolutely still be a thing. So thank you for bringing me back to my senses, Louis Reed. I appreciate
I mean,
it.
and I get why people would outright pass on him, right? Like if you were to make a list of guys who could go full Antonio Brown this year, like he would probably be the first guy. He'd probably be the first guy you would name. Like if anyone's gonna just take, if anyone's gonna take their jersey off and run off the field, like maybe it's him. But
oh shoot, man.
I mean, I just think the things he's getting harped on for negative, I think that like what he did last year was unacceptable at the end of the year. And I think that he deserved to get called out for it. And I think that's Tua's right. Like I want Tua to do that. Like it's just Tua's team. Like Tua should be dropping the hammers. Like, dude, we're not going to run that. Like you cannot be that. Like we want 2 feet in the door.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm going to throw out a couple things that were actually here in the chat. Somebody had dropped our boy from Philly, B Shells. I think you kind of answered this here, but I just want to put it out there. Yeah. So,
and we're not in the locker room. We don't know how all those people feel about it. We can only look on the outside looking in. But what I would say, though, I feel like we've run it out because, like, obviously Tyreek is a guy that a lot of people just inherently aren't going to root for as a person. And I'm not saying I am either. I'm just saying that just comes with the baggage. So anytime that he has something happen, it's always going to get taken to the 10th degree because he's burned all the bridges, right? Like he's lost people placing faith in him as a person, first. Like no one's going to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? But we don't know, right? Like these are things we can't quantify. We don't know. Things could be just absolutely okay and with that, like with the standing in the locker room. We don't know that. So it's tough for us to say, but like, because honestly, the only negative things we've heard is like one, him saying Achane should be the goal line back, and then Tua calling out for something that happened last year. It was last year he brought it up. Like it was, talked about it. And in that whole context of that quote, they talked about these are what I talk to him behind closed doors, which is what you want your quarterback to do.
Dig that. Dig that
For sure.
Who you got, Nick?
4th player on the list. He just got paid. Terry McLaurin.
All right, yeah, I'll put McLaurin 5, and I hope I'm not left with a scrub at 1. This is the thing that you do with this. You guys, you can pull the rug on me if you want, but yeah, Terry was a guy I was really bummed at the drop-in because he was a guy I was already kind of discounting already. I was already below market on him. Well, like one, you have like the team stuff that we talked about the open show, like the Commanders. I don't expect them to be a bad offense by any means, but like they're also not sneaking up on anyone this year. They are another team that took advantage of a supremely easy layout last year, and that's what you want good teams to do. Good offenses expose bad defenses. That's another thing that too is people when we talk about strength of schedule or like talk about schedules, and people are like, oh well, this guy roasted this bad team. That's what good players should do. They should absolutely throttle those teams.
100%.
We want that to happen. Like that's what we want to happen.
100%.
Literally.
But I do think there will be a little bit of recoil for the Commanders because, like, they are going to face a harder schedule. They're not going to sneak up on anyone this season. And it's really a couple of things with Terry McLaurin that I think I was going to have trouble with being on board with. Well, one is like the Cliff Kingsbury usage still, right? Like it was still a problem. Like he got over last year and was able to work through it. But like one, Cliff still doesn't know that Terry McLaurin is allowed to play other positions besides left outside receiver. Like it still happened. I mean, last year, and Cliff is gonna forget more football than I'll ever know.
Right.
But last year, 681 snaps at left wide receiver, 95 at right wide receiver, 154 in the slot. He was able, like, no creative usage. He didn't have an elite target share either. Like it was, 23% of his targets. That's a wide receiver 3. And then he just ran so hot on touchdowns last year. He had 16 end zone targets. 11 of them were caught for touchdowns. It was the highest rate of a player with that many end zone targets over the past decade. Over the past 10 years, there's been 16 other wide receivers that have converted over half of their end zone targets, getting double-digit end zone targets. All but 2 of those guys scored fewer touchdowns the next year. So when you pair like touchdown regression with non-elite usage, you have more of a precipitous fall. And then they add Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel, you might not he might have been like overvalued the last couple years in fantasy, but from a real football structural stance, this is like the one team he could leave a Kyle Shanahan offense for, and schematically like really kind of fit what the Commanders were looking for. This is a team that really struggled to generate any yards after the catch in terms of their pass catching unit, and that's never been like really Terry's game either. You know, Terry's been a guy that's won outside and vertically. One of my favorite stats from last year, Jaden Daniels threw 3 passing touchdowns where the pass catcher ran the ball into the end zone. The only quarterbacks that had fewer and qualified for passer rating last year were Cooper Rush and Trevor Lawrence, and neither one of those guys played the full season. Like, there's a reason why the 49 or the Commanders like wanted a guy like Deebo Samuel in this offense. Like, he structurally fits. And when you look at Cliff, obviously he runs a lot of mesh, but he also runs a lot of, you know, he's always run like a lot of wide receiver screens, you know, everywhere he's gone. He wants these quick hitters. He wants to use his athletes, you know, in space, and he wants to use his athletes out of the backfield. This is like, Deebo is like a fit for structurally like what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. Does that mean Deebo is necessarily going to smash in fantasy football? No, but I do think his addition to this offense also is another pipeline to maybe this is where Terry can't go from a 23% target share and jump to a 30% target share, right? Like, so like his imprint also on the offense, I think, does pull him down for me a little bit too. I was bummed to see the dip though with the contractual stuff. Also, like, one thing you have to factor in with Terry McLaurin is now we have to expect a slow start though, because he missed all camp. He missed all camp. We saw this last year. Brandon Ayuk misses all camp. Looked lost in week 1, drops that touchdown against the Jets. He only goes over 50 yards once before he has the ACL injury. People forget, because the way the season ended for Jamar Chase, where he just was absolutely going nuclear again, pockets of production. Yeah, dude, the first month of the season, Jamar Chase was wide receiver 37 in targets. He had single-digit targets in 6 of the first 7 games. Took him a while to get going. CeeDee Lamb, same way. CeeDee Lamb talked about him and Dak Prescott to open the season. We're not on the same page because he missed all camp. So this does impact Terry McLaurin, this holdout, even though now he did sign today and he's going to be, you know, on the field in week 1. We still have to expect some kind of an impact here from him just missing the entire offseason.
Word. No, those all great takes, man. All great takes for sure.
Especially the Deebo one.
Oh, Lord. Here we go.
Yeah, and like Deebo's not a guy I draft all the time because like he usually goes in a pocket where like when I'm on my bench receivers, I might be adding like I might be looking more to like more upside like down the season, like a Matthew Golden or something. And I don't need like that, you know, because like Deebo's probably not gonna on a lot of ADP spots like make my lineup like weeks 1 through 4. He's gonna be more of a guy like if he's off to a hot start, I can plug him in, or through bye weeks I can plug him in. So I might be looking for more guys down the stretch for like that post bye rookie bump, right? Like we saw with Ladd and Brian Thomas. These are the guys that were going at like wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s in your drafts last year. And come crunch time, like these are the guys you wanted in as your wide receiver 2 last year. So like the guys like Egbuka, the guys like Golden, you know, even maybe like a year 2 guy like Pearsall, or like Rome is a year 2 guy. Like these are guys that maybe just longevity wise have more full on upside and a higher run out than like the Deebos, like the Cups of the world. But there are rosters absolutely where Deebo fits, because you might just need that glue guy. You're like, oh man, I missed a pocket of wide receivers or something. Like I just need a guy I can count on to be my wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. So structurally he does fit if you need to draft him.
So Brendan Shelley's fault. Thoughts? Jeez. On Deebo getting any backfield work again.
Oh yeah.
With the Commanders. Like
that's definitely happening. Possible? Yeah, look at Rondale, man. Like it's the same stuff Cliff did. Like he's gonna get carries. Yeah. And I like that you wrote it in there, the sorry Bill lovers, because because it's an actual impact on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And I was hammering Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt like all summer. And it sucks to be like in on him and then kind of be, I'm not out right now, but the thing is now where he's being drafted in terms of ADP, I just love the receivers around that. Like to me, I feel like the strength of the wide receivers in drafts this year are like wide receiver 20 through 50, which is usually rounds 5 through 10. Like I'm just really hammering a lot of those rounds. I'm taking a lot of receivers in that pocket. And so by then I usually have either 3 running backs or 2 running backs. And you look at saying, all right, well, if the pro argument is saying Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could be a more explosive version of Brian Robinson, therefore he should be priced near him, I can listen to that side of the argument. The problem is there's always an outcome where with Brian Robinson's role, we always knew he at least still had goal line work. We do not know that is a guarantee for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Because it could be Chris Rodriguez as a bigger body. We already seen Dan Quinn talk about potentially using Chris Rodriguez in that capacity. And the Commanders, we talked about them just a minute ago, how effective they were as a real NFL team, right? Like they were 7th in the NFL in snaps led. Despite being 7th in the NFL in snaps led, they were 19th in running back runs. So even though they had all these game scripts, their running backs weren't getting a lot of carries at all. So they're a team, when you look at Jaden Daniels plus Deebo Samuel, this is a team that's probably going to have 125 to 150 non-running back runs on their roster, which also is an impact. So like, and then he doesn't have passing down stuff because we know that's going to be Eckler for sure. Also, like Eckler also has proven like goal line chops, even for being a smaller guy. He can get used near the goal line as well. So we potentially might have a guy now getting drafted against wide receivers we genuinely like that could lead the Commanders' backfield necessarily in touches, but isn't catching passes and isn't scoring touchdowns. It's kind of the worst version. If you're just getting handoffs, that's not the way we score fantasy points, really. So it's really tough. So I hate being like so in on him all summer to kind of having like a foot out now. It's just kind of where he's going to be drafted in this 11th hour is the real bummer, because I do like him in Dynasty. I do like him the way he fits in this offense. Eckler's going to be an unrestricted free agent after the year. There's a larger runway. This is his opportunity though, for a 7th round guy though. If he can at least in this role show that he's effective in this role, that's going to be a big jumping off point, because this is what we saw with like Pacheco, right? As a 7th rounder. Pacheco as a rookie shared work with Jerick McKinnon, but was effective in his role, got more work as the season progressed. And then they go into year 2 and they want to give him more work. And then year 3, more work. And then he has the unfortunate injury at the start of last year. But this is how, when you're a late round guy, you've got to maximize your opportunity. No one's going to give you the keys in round 7 guy. Like he's not going to get 300 touches.
Right.
Like, you know, it's all about what he can do now. Hey, we like what you showed us at camp. We want to give you a little bit more. Now take that opportunity and turn that into something else, and you can continue to build on that. We're not expecting him to turn into Arian Foster here.
My boy, shout out UT. Let's go.
Oh my goodness. Oh, there goes that.
All right. Our last one, Travion Henderson, your boy.
That's my last guy?
Yeah.
Oh, see, it worked out. Oh, look, I played it right. I actually feel all right the way this turned out now. I actually feel this is all right. Like, you know, granted, I think scoring settings, you might flip Chuba and DJ Moore, but I think having it Trevion, Tyreek, Hubbard, DJ Moore, Terry, I feel good with the way that came out. I love it. Yeah. Travion, it's unfortunate too, because his theme is pretty wild. Yeah, third round Travion's a little tougher now than where we were, you know, a while ago when he was going at the 4 or 5 turn, and life was sweet. But if you were asking me to like make like a potential like top 24 for guys that could be like, just always ask yourself this at home too. Walk yourself through this exercise. What do you think 2026's top 24 ADP is going to be? Do that. Create your own top 24 in ADP, and that will tell you also maybe where there's some potential values or some guys could smash, right? So when I look at Travion Henderson, I don't think it's far-fetched to saying like a year from now, we could be looking at this guy as not only a round 2 pick, but a round 1 pick, right? Like he has the Jahmyr Gibbs gene. This is a guy who, as a complete freshman, had over 1,500 yards at Ohio State, ends up sharing some backfield the other 3 years. But he has potential here to have like this full-on run out. If he were to run into this opportunity, he can absolutely take it and just go nuclear. He's got that Jahmyr Gibbs gene. So that exists. I think that obviously getting paired with Josh McDaniel is huge. Now, Ramondre is not going away. Right. I know a lot of people think Ramondre is actually bad. I actually am not one of them. I actually think Ramondre is going to, from an efficiency stance, is going to bounce back and look a lot better than he has the last 2 years. I just think when you look at this backfield, their cohesiveness, really the symmetry that fits each other. Where Ramondre's really struggled the past 2 years as he's gotten exposed. And he was one of these guys, was a later round pick, not a 7th round pick, but was a day 3 pick that had to turn his opportunity into something. And when they started to give him like the full 3 down work, we started to see some of the flaws in his game. And like we talked about the receiving stuff, just hasn't been a good pass catcher, turned his opportunities in the passing game into anything explosive. And then also we talk about the ball security stuff, right? You know what? Trayvon's never fumbled. He didn't fumble once. Didn't fumble once.
Wow.
And so like, definitely stands out getting some ball security stuff. A guy that can contribute in the passing game. I fully expect though to be more 50-50, maybe even in favor of Ramondre to open the year. Same thing with the Broncos, right? Like if you're thinking like Travion Henderson in week 1, and this is the whole problem with like, if you take him in like the 3rd round now, is like, you might get off to a slower start, especially if he's your RB1. If Travion's your RB2, I feel fine about it. But if he's your RB1, you might not be getting RB1 production for quite a bit from him. And we saw this with Gibbs as a rookie too. We needed David Montgomery to start missing some action, right, to open up those floodgates for Jahmyr Gibbs. People forget that, right? Like it was David Montgomery kind of open up a little bit. And you have to expect it with some of these rookie backs, especially because the pass pro stuff. But Travion is an awesome pass pro. If I were to bet on one of these dudes to be really good out of the box, in terms of pass pro, would be him. LaQuint Gallen would be the other guy, but he probably doesn't have his pipeline to that many opportunities. But pass pro, you very rarely ever see these guys get day 1 pass pro reps. Like NFL coaches don't trust these dudes. No. Like not when we got a year 2 quarterback. Like we might not
franchise out there, baby. The franchise is out there, baby.
We did this last year with the Broncos. Everyone was like, Javonte Williams is awful. Let's start playing McLaughlin. Let's start playing Estime. And Sean Payton was like, you know what? Jaleel McLaughlin's 190 pounds. Audric Estime is a rookie. There is no way in hell I'm having either of those dudes block for a rookie quarterback. Like there's just no damn way. And that's the stuff that people lose sight on too. We did this with a lot of guys that were bad pass protectors coming out of college. Remember CEH? This like was the undoing of kind of the early, because CEH at LSU was a trash pass protector. He just wasn't big enough either. And remember, even when week 1, he came out, gets 2 touchdowns against the Texans. He still came out every long pass, every long down and distance. And that's okay because like, that's not really like fantasy making down and distances for fantasy points. Like typically your running back is either in pass pro or he's running a route, and they're not really throwing to running backs on those downs anyways. If they are, it's because it's a check down, because it's shell coverage. And like, it's just, hey, they took that away. I dump it off. Now we're punting.
Right.
So it's not a huge deal that these guys won't. It's just one thing to factor in, that these guys aren't going to get 3 down work out of the box. So if you do take these guys as your RB1 and you're saying, hey, week 1, I've heard nothing but buzz on Travion Henderson, I'm expecting him now to get 18 touches. That's probably not going to happen in week 1. Like it probably won't. I would love for it to happen, but it's probably not. We got to have a little bit of patience on it.
No, man, I definitely appreciate that segment for sure, man. That was one of the things I was looking forward to having a little fun.
It worked out.
Yeah. Speaking of fun, man, we got something else in here, man, that dropped, man, as we're kind of rounding into the 4th quarter here. What about this right here, man? From No Nonsense Media. Rich or Warren Sharp? Who's better at fantasy?
Oh, definitely.
I know the answer.
Fantasy. Yeah, Warren doesn't play. Warren doesn't play fantasy. We actually just had a deal at DraftKings, and we had that, like, part of the deal is Warren had to actually draft a team with me and Ray on stream. And I asked him before the show when was last time he drafted a team, and he said it was probably like 6 years. But yeah, there's a reason why though. Like I chose to work with Warren when I like had my free agency, and that was like at the boom of like sports betting becoming legal. And he got to stay in his lane and do sports betting, bring me on to do fantasy. And like, I do fantasy, he does sports betting, and I don't have to feel that pressure of like saying I have to create a bunch of props for in my field. And he doesn't have to create any pressure of saying like, here's fantasy stuff. Like we just stay in our each lane and we work together.
Love it. We're taking some notes over here. You know what I mean? Taking some notes. Last one here, just in the chat. Just want to shout out Chris, man, for sure. 3 of the best in the biz right here. Appreciate the love. If you still on and still with us, Chris, man, for sure. Appreciate all you do, man. Love for Chris. For sure. So, yeah, man. So, home leagues, man. Any advice for people as we're getting kind of towards the end here?
Yeah, always kind of that fun time of year. A couple things. One, no matter what I say, you always know your league better than me. I would say that you can ask me what bounce any ideas off players or structurally you want to do, but you'll always know your league better than me. If I've been in a league with you a decade, I probably know like, oh, Nick's never going to take a quarterback earlier. He always wants to get on a running back. It's like, the style play. So I definitely keep that factored into everything, but just go back to what we started on, like know your format, assess your format, build out from there, know your scoring, know how you got to attack things. This is, I will say, is genuinely probably the most excited I've been for a fantasy season, I think, ever as a content creator,
Wow.
and probably as a player. I just think when you look at top down, I think the offenses have figured out answers last year to kind of get us out of this defensive meta a little bit. I think the NFL made rule changes last year. Obviously, the kickoff change was massive last year, and then they even add on another 5 yards for touchbacks this season. I think the talent in the top 2 rounds is this is like the best top 24 I think I can remember, but maybe recency bias. I like want to go back, but it's at least in like the last like 10 years as strong as I can remember, maybe even the top 36. And what that does is just offer us a lot of versatility into how you want to play. Like I compare it to like last year, we had like 10 good players that you felt good about in the first round last year. And by the time we got to the round 1, round 2 turn, like we're pushing up guys like Olave and Garrett Wilson. I'm like, we hope they make that jump, but there was no proof of it. This year, I mean, you're taking AJ Brown as like a mid 2, back end 2. And if you're in these super flex leagues, it's only pushing these guys down even further.
Yep.
And like, so if you want to build running back, if you want to build running back, wide receiver, if you want to go wide receiver, I just think that the draft season offers so much more fluidity this year than other previous seasons, that the door is open, that when we look back on this, I don't think it'll be necessarily like one structural way got you to the end game. I think it's going to be pretty open this year. I think there are a lot of ways to win in fantasy football this year, and it makes it fun. It makes these snake drafts fun when not everyone's drafting the same way, right? When you just have kind of that Pandora's box of saying, maybe I do want to take Brock Bowers in round 2, right? Like, is all these different ways. Maybe I want to take an elite quarterback in round 3. Like, it's just wide open this year, I think, to do kind of whatever you feel is the best approach for yourself.
All right. I love
that.
I love that one. I think maybe I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in here for my guy.
Yeah, please do, man. Please do.
All right, here we go. So Washington's running back assessment. How about the Dolphins to start the season? Is Gordon worthy of getting rid of right now?
Is he worthy of getting run? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so the one wild card I had with Achane, where he kind of started out open as, is like, I still wasn't like for sure, not because Tyreek Hill told me this, but I still wasn't for sure he was going to get the goal line work, because if you go back to last year, the games that him and Raheem Mostert played, Mostert still out-touched him inside the 5. And, sometimes these coaches, from an archetypical stance, like, we'll just like the bigger body, right? Like, they just do. We've seen this happen so many times, right? And it's not that bigger backs are more effective than smaller backs. Like, there really is kind of no evidence of that. But coaches, we know how coaches think, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, I've got this big body dude, I'm going to play him. So I was kind of always wondering, like, are they going to try out Jalen Wright here? And then they draft out, or they had Alexander Madison, and then they draft Ollie Gordon. People forget Ollie Gordon in 2023 was one of the best running backs in college. In 2024, that offense completely caves in on itself. He looks worse as a byproduct of that. But, like, we saw this with Chuba Hubbard, a guy we talked about. Chuba Hubbard was incredible his second to last year at Oklahoma State, and then has kind of like a bad run out his senior year, takes a step back, falls in the draft a little bit, but then we've seen him kind of get back and get better progressively in the NFL. Ollie Gordon might be one of these guys that just slipped through the cracks because of the strength of the draft class, and then got over penalized due to kind of like some of his metrics due to size, and his production from 2024. But this is a guy who can break tackles and create. If you've drafted Ollie Gordon your 3rd and 4th round in Dynasty, everything you needed to have happen initially has happened. Alexander Madison gets hurt the first preseason game, has to go on IR. Jalen Warren gets a shot at goal line carries, completely flatlines. And granted, it's not all his fault, like, because offensive line's tied into this, but definitely didn't do anything to secure his role. And then Ollie Gordon, with the opportunities he's gotten in the preseason, has converted those. So everything you needed as a dynasty drafter of Ollie Gordon, you've gotten the run out you've needed so far. Now we're not going to have Jalen Wright. At least he's not expected to play week 1. Right. And Devin Achane's entering the year with this calf injury we don't know the severity of. So if I'm the Dolphins, especially if you're coming off of what happened we saw in the NBA, right? The NBA playoffs, with Jason
Yeah.
Tatum and Halliburton, these calf injuries. Like, do you think that the Miami
Don't
Dolphins?
say that, please.
But no, I'm saying
Yeah,
if you're
but
the
you're
Dolphins
spot
coaching
on.
staff,
Yeah.
no, but if you're the Dolphins coaching staff and you have all these things that happen, these guys pushing these calf injuries. It's week 1. We have Devin Achane, a guy who's had some injury stuff in the past, isn't necessarily the biggest guy. Do you want him coming out in week 1 and you giving him a full workload?
Nah,
like we've got,
you don't win the season.
You don't.
Yeah,
Like
you don't win it all.
We're trying to protect him, right?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to protect him. We want so that week 1 run out. I wouldn't be surprised if Ali Gordon, had 8 to 12 touches in week 1. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that happened, right? Or if he was outright the early down banger and Achane maybe is playing more in like passing stuff or high leverage stuff.
Yeah.
But because we just don't know, right? The severity of this injury, we don't know. It could be all precautionary, and then come week 1, it's not. But if I'm the Miami Dolphins and I'm thinking big picture, if I'm Mike McDaniel, I might be on the hot seat.
Yep.
I'm not trying to have Devin Achane go down in week 1.
Yep. But if so, listen, because if so, Mike McDaniels.
He go.
And have I pitched this to you guys? I don't know if I told you this when we were having that conversation. Has anyone ever gone to a city, like either free agency or coaching, and just like turned into that city more than Mike McDaniel's turned to like,
God, bro.
like he was like a straight up nerd, and now he's like a character from Vice City. Like
straight up,
it's just crazy, man. It's absolutely wild.
Oh man, I love it.
Oh yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Amazing.
But yeah, I think he should be the short answer. I think Ali Gordon should be one of these guys you have just like you tack onto the inner rosters and you just kind of see where the opening start of the season goes. If you have to throw him back, you throw him back. But definitely in that bucket of just hey, at the end of your draft, let's see what happens.
Makes sense. Few more. So Cam the Ham has a 10-man half-point PPR roster that he drafted. Starters are Lamar, Henry, Henderson, Pollard, Neighbors, Evans, and Kraft. The benches are Diggs, Swift, Judy, Stevenson, Bigsby, Wandale Robinson, and Drake May. Thoughts on this team?
I mean, it looks good. I mean, it's a 10-team league. You're going to always have a little more juice in the 10-teamer. We were doing one in Canton. We were drafting 14-teamers, right?
Yep.
But you find out real quick what those extra 20, those extra 2 teams.
Bro, you just brought up a sensitive spot for me. 14 and no 3rd round reversal. I walked out of that draft less of a man.
Hey, you find out adding those 2 teams and so removing 2 teams that that you see. But I mean, it's a solid team. Listen, man, you got Lamar, you got the big dog. It's half-point PPR. It's where you want the big dog. Evans is a half-point PPR receiver too, right? Like he's not a guy that really goes to the 100 catches. He goes to the double-digit tuds. Had a great run out with Mike Evans too this offseason. He's definitely gonna be Baker's dude at the beginning of the year. I know we're excited for Igbuka, but we know the foxhole dude is still Big Mike.
Absolutely.
Literally. Last question we got of the night is gonna be pull it up. I gotta scroll for it. Sorry, I literally just had it.
It's gone forever.
It's gone. It's gone forever. Yeah, it's gone forever.
Make up your own question. It's fine.
Let's go.
Make up your own question.
Make up on the spot question, right?
No.
So the question is. So the question was, what you thought about some of the older running backs. So like Connor and technically Chuba's still young, but going around that
Chuba's still young. I'm still into James Conner. I mean, I start to factor in like when I start to factor in age, and I've been a little more lenient. I've been a little more open too. I've been thinking about this from a dynasty stance, kind of off season and pitch around it. I'll throw it to you guys too and let you guys know what you guys think. I've just been a little more open to moving the goalposts on player age in general, just because these guys are investing a lot more into their bodies. And granted, it's still the NFL. I don't want to make like complete one-off to the NBA. And obviously you see what like a guy like LeBron is able to still do, and not to compare every athlete to LeBron, but these guys are putting a lot more into their bodies. So these guys that are older, as long as they're still efficient and so productive, I'm not really docking them so much for age. It's when the age comes with like that drop in production is where I'm starting to like say, all right, now I'm going to start to factor that in a little bit. Like Connor, still incredibly efficient. And what's funny about Connor is if you ask anyone, they're like, oh, well, who should I target for like my defense to open the year? And people are like, you should get the Cardinals because of all the QBs they play. And you know what that makes me think? You should get James Conner because all the QBs the Cardinals play. Like they're probably going to be winning games and running the football.
Yes.
So yeah, and I do just think in general, Drew Petzing is a lot better run game designer than pass game designer. Or maybe some of that is a Kyler problem too, but we won't know until they get separated from that marriage, right? Same thing with Marv, right? Probably Marv and Kyler. We won't really have an answer until we see one play without the other. But we know that Kyler's had some issues throwing over the middle of the field. I've also pitched the idea of the influx of like the shell coverage and the focusing the stuff to the middle of the field has impacted a guy like Kyler, right? Like, because you can't take these vertical shots down the sidelines anymore because this has hurt Russ, a smaller quarterback as well. Remember Russ's game? Dude, Russ was headed to the Hall of Fame.
Yes, he was.
Russ was on his way. Russ's first 7 years in the NFL.
I was about to say first 6 or 7. Like you couldn't see him, man.
Had Super Bowl win, was it Pro Bowls, efficiency, and then the Vic Fangio and that too high defense started coming around. And you know what? Russ, that big game hunter mentality started to, because he could still throw. When you give him looks like last year, he's still effective getting that. He could throw that vertical ball. Kyler Collinsworth calls it the moon ball.
Yes.
I mean, he can still, that's his game. His bread and butter is that. But when you take that away from him, his career is kind of, it's caved in.
So Russell Wilson bounce back, you're saying?
No. I'm saying the term. So the two things I'll pitch to you guys, and I'll ask you guys questions now.
Sure.
So one,
okay.
do you think like, how are you guys handling player age in this era where like players are obviously investing a lot more into their bodies? And then two, like that like I just talked about too high stuff. Do you think the too high stuff is a problem, has become a larger issue for some of the smaller quarterbacks?
You want to go, Nick? Or,
no, go ahead, John. Take it away.
No, like I actually, I spent some time during the off season actually doing some research just around like this space right here, and that's kind of how I landed like on Joe Mixon and the offensive line, and like to your point, the injuries and some of the red flags and stuff. So I think it was like him, Aaron Jones, James Conner, and it was Aaron Jones, James Conner.
Kamara.
Yes, Kamara. Yes. And Kamara, like everybody's always going to say, like, first of all, like, I'm not going to get off of him. I'm a UT guy, so like, I'm not going to get off of him. And like, he's been in unfavorable situations. And again, like, if the script is going to be bad, you know what it's going to be. Like, he's the best player on their team, so like, they're going to get him involved for sure. So I think like there's one element of that for me with him, James Conner, like you mentioned all that stuff. Like, and I think like to your point, like you hit on a lot of things that like actually like I had already had, like I had was like their run game is going to get better. And it wasn't even from a PFF side of things. Like it wasn't even like brutally bad last year from like a ranking side of things. Like they were already good. And then like I think they spent the first round pick, was it 2 years ago, on a tackle. Name's not coming to me right off the top of the head, but like, so you have to think like there's obviously going to be some progression there, like as far as that goes. And then Aaron Jones was really the one that scares me the most. And it's really talked about it. It's not the fact that like he doesn't play games. It's the fact that like most of the time, like when he gets hurt in the middle of a game, and then he comes back for the next game, and then or like he's missing like these giant chunks of time. But like I think we all know like what the Vikings offense is going to be, and if he's able to be upright, like he's a perfect running back too, like if that's the case. So like instead of me like blacking out every like running backs to your point that are like of age 29 or of age 30, I've even almost thought about taking a different approach with it and like looking at like the actual years that they've played as like a different gauge and a different marker as opposed to the actual age for some of these players. Because James Conner, we're talking about the Steelers situation. Like James Conner, while he was in Pittsburgh, he never played in 16 games. He didn't have anywhere near the success that, he's been having with the Arizona Cardinals. So, and part of that is probably due to, Pittsburgh's offensive scheme that they've had over the last, 5-6 years or so plus. So like I'm not like completely like out on players, because I think like when you look at older players like that can be in some instances, that can be where your draft can be made or broken. Like if you're able to find one of those guys to be able to hinge on an RB16. James Conner, I think, was RB6 or RB8, like in like the PPR and points per game or something like that right there. He was an upper echelon running back, and you got him last year in the 5th or 6th round, and you're probably still getting him somewhere in that space like now in most drafts. So like I'm all right with older running backs, but I think kind of to your point, it's about the build. And if you take a guy like Travion Henderson or RJ Harvey, like that's where you want to have like a James Conner to be able to kind of help offset that, right?
Yep.
Or an Alvin Kamara. So yeah.
What I'll say to this is like, I think I'm willing to take more of the shot on an older receiver than say, obviously an older running back. Just due to how I'll give you a perfect example of this. Like the year prior, Adam Thielen, like came out of nowhere, right? In a way, because everyone written him off because he was at the time a 34-year-old receiver. Like, I just think that because of how he runs his routes, because of how he's, a staple inside in that offense, like he is still able to, be like Anquan Bolden when he was toward the tail end of the season, Larry Fitzgerald, stuff like that. Not to that height, obviously, but it was more like he fits that mold, that blend. So I'm willing to take stabs at, some older receivers, especially when it gets really gritty down to the end to see what we have, because you'll be able to find out within the next first couple weeks of the season that so-and-so may still have it or so-and-so just definitely doesn't. Allen Robinson, we talked about that. Like, he wasn't even that old of a receiver, but it was just literally like he fell off a cliff massively. Like, so it's Matt Harmon also talks about it. It's like, you'll be able to find, some of those receivers, like the age cliff is a little bit hard to predict, but in terms of how it can still go up, like it could still be there at a decent level. So my approach is more about, I'm willing to take, and then obviously we'll talk about Derrick Henry because he's the big outlier, right? 31 years old. And obviously he's done it year in, year out. Like, is it the 1 year where it's like, do you want to have Henry that 1 year he falls off a cliff or he gets hurt, whatever, stuff like that? I don't want to say no to it, but it's also in the realm of possibility. But it's something you got to also think about because you're like, oh man, like he's going to get up their age. And although he's a battering ram, like it only takes one injury. So I'll just say my approach to it is more just like, hey, like I'm willing to take my chances, just more later in the draft, obviously. I won't write off certain guys, but it just depends on, what we're picking around. Like, for perfect example, James Conner. I've never really been a James Conner guy. Give me, Chuba Hubbard. Give me, RJ Harvey. Give me some younger guys around that area where it's like I'm willing to take a stab on that versus James Conner, where it's like that offense. Kyler Murray, am I buying into that offense? Really? I don't know, because they burned people in the past, especially me last year. But it's something where it's like, it's more like, all right, am I buying into the offense and the whole pieces and that trend of that player? Okay, this can, make some sense. For example, another player, DeAndre Hopkins, with Baltimore. It's like pretty much run first offense. At times we saw them be more vertical though. So it's in the realm of possibility. Can he be someone that's people are, shying away from? They already have been, but more about, do they think he'll bounce back? Who knows? But like you said, Rich, I think in terms of the approach, I'm not shying away from older guys. It just depends on the situation, really.
Yeah, and I love that too, because you can easily do like your Trevion teams get a Connor still, or like a guy like Tony Pollard, right? Who's not older, but that's a guy where early in the season, is going to have run out. And you could play him while these guys are ramping up, or maybe not getting the touches that you want them to have, or you expect them to maybe close the year with. You can have these guys. That's kind of what structurally, like, running back is a little bit different than year I played it. I've always been like an anchor running back guy, and this year I found myself. Getting more teams with 2 running backs through 5, 3 running backs through 8 type of builds. And it's really goes back to speak to something I talked about earlier too. It's just like that, the strength of the receiver position just being so good, like wide receiver 20 through 50. I've almost found myself doing more teams that are not full on like anchor wide receiver built, but like I'm getting like 1 elite wide receiver, maybe peppering in like a 2, and then just getting like like 4 to 5 guys over like a 3 or 4 round period where I'm just absolutely smashing these guys that are just because I want to soak up a lot of these guys that I think are undervalued, whether it be Calvin Ridley or George Pickens or we talk about Rashee Rice and where he's going in drafts. Is it the rookie wide receivers where they're going the Bukas, the Goldens, the year 2 guys like Pearsall and Adunze, Travis Hunter? Do I want to just bet on an outlier player, right? Like, Travis Hunter is like the ultimate bet on talent, dude.
Yeah.
Like literally like
Yes.
he just might be the definition of hashtag good at football, like because
Yes,
he does
sir.
it all. Like,
Yes, sir.
So that's why I just love so many receivers, and I just think like it's so easy to come out with like 3 to 4 guys from that range that you feel pretty good about, and they're not even guys that you're even locking in as like your wide receiver 2. These are guys you're getting as your wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4,
Yes.
flex guys,
Yes.
and you're adding them to your Gibraltars at the front of the draft. That's what I love it, man. That's what I said. This is a genuinely exciting fantasy football year. I feel like I'm genuinely excited for it.
No, I love it, man. I love it. All right, man. Well, definitely appreciate all your time, man, for sure tonight. It's definitely been a blast for sure. So where can people find you at, and what's next for you, Lord Reeves?
I'm done. I got the whole draft kit up at Sharp Football Analysis. If you are drafting this weekend, please go check it out. Other than that, like I just had my last series come out, and it's just like a walkthrough of how I'm drafting each position, because some people just want the answers to the test, right? It's like I write all these articles all off season. They're like, I'm not reading all that, man. Just tell me. So the last series I always do is like, hey, step by step, everything that I worked on all off season. That this is where I arrived at everything. So follow that if you want to follow that. And then other than that, like I'm excited. I only get to work ahead 1 week of the season, so I've already started to work on some week 1 content and start to work on some of these games. Get a little bit excited. So hopefully be excited to read some of these game previews and game write-ups I have. Start getting ready to build some week 1 DFS lineups. All these things, because once we're in the season, like I said, the throes of this stuff that we all spent 6 months talking about, it all changes.
Yes,
and we got you better get on board with it as things are changing. So we know the NFL is a fluid game.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, man, definitely appreciate it again. Like I said, thank you once again for being on with us. You guys, if you're still on with us, which looks like we got more than we normally do, I wonder why. Look for Nick and I on the 26th with Sports Affiliation at 8 p.m. We'll be there. But with that being said, remember, it's the people's game. And this week we all got Rich. Thanks to Rich Hribar, Lord Reeves, for coming on here with us at the Fantasy Football Show. And we out.